Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. This is a video on daily news and editorial analysis, which I'll be covering from the Hindu and Indian Express. It's the most important news and editorial of the day that is relevant for both prelims and mains examination perspective will be discussed in this session. Let's get started with the news topic list. Today is 19th of September. The first important news, that is the process of inclusion and exclusion from the ST list. This is from the text and context page of the Hindu. Second, online dispute resolution is an example of social engineering. We'll see the detail about this. Third, USTR meeting for WTO dispute settlement reform. This is a long pending reform and definitely very important for the mains examination. The other news, that is time for increased actions against the COVID-19, a caution which was made by the WHO. And the last is an editorial, a gender pay gap, hard truth, and the action needed. A brilliant editorial that will give you an insight and reality about the gender pay gap. Apart from the news and editorial discussion, at the end of this video, there will be MCQ based question. And these questions will be based on current affairs that will help you for the upcoming prelims examination. So without any further delay, let's get started. And before I start this session, those of you who are new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful, do not forget to press a like button. Starting the session with the first news, that is the process of inclusion, exclusion from the ST list, that is the scheduled tribe list. And this is important for General Studies paper 2, that is functions and responsibility of union and states, issues and challenges pertaining to the federal structure of our country. So recently the Union Cabinet has approved to add several tribes to the list of SC tribe in state, and these important states include Himachal Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh and Uttar Pradesh. So these four important states are there upon which the ST community which is residing in the region, the other community which should be the part of it, has been included. Now the Minister of Tribal Affairs has announced that the 6 tribal communities of Assam are threatened to lodge protest over an inordinary delay in the inclusion of the ST list. So this is again something, a long pending demand from the ST community, which were not mainstream part of the ST community, but they possess the character that they should be eligible for the reservation and other benefits that are liable to the ST community list. Now, communities that has been added in the scheduled tribe list. So the community approved for the inclusion of scheduled tribe list include the Hatti tribe in the Trans-Gri area of Sirmaur district of Himachal Pradesh. So this name of the tribe is very important. Even UPSC can ask you in the match the column in another section, correct options for that. So this is pretty much relevant for the prelims examination. Now the other tribe, that is Nari Kovaran and Kuri Vikaran, is from the Tamil Nadu. These two tribes belong to Tamil Nadu, that has been added into the ST list. Now Benjia community from Chhattisgarh and Gond community in Uttar Pradesh has also been added in the part of the ST list recently by the Union government. Now the cabinet has approved the additional several alternative name for already existing scheduled tribe in Chhattisgarh and Karnataka. कुछ ऐसे tribes थे, उनके names को rename किया गया है, and these states include Chhattisgarh and Karnataka. So these are some of the basic facts of this news which is relevant for your examination purposes. Now, official scheduled tribe list की अगर बात करें, according to the scheduled tribe of India, it was revealed in the census 2011 that 705 ethnic group listed in the scheduled tribe under Article 342 of the Indian Constitution, and over 10 crore of Indians are notified as the scheduled tribe, of which 1.4 crore are living in urban areas, and the ST constitute 8.6% of the population and 11.3% of the rural population. So suppose you're specifically writing about the ST community, this can be some fodder point that even you can use in the mains paper. Now, how is a community added or removed from the SC/ST list, that is from the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe list? क्या procedures हैं, क्या constitutions कहती है, क्या constitutional provisions है? We'll see the detail. So the process at a level started from the state or from the union territories which are concerned government or the administrator seeking the additional or inclusion of a particular community to the SC list or to the ST list. तो ये स्टार्ट होती है स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के साथ या फिर यूनियन टेरिटरी गवर्नमेंट के साथ. And the final decision rests with the president office, that is the president of India, after a notification that has been made, and this is envisaged in the article 341 and 342 of the Indian constitutions. Now the inclusion or exclusion of the list of any community in the scheduled tribe or in the scheduled caste list has to come into effect after the president give assent to the bill. अगर कोई भी बिल टेबल की जाती है उनके इंक्लूजन को लिए, तो वो बिल को पहले प्रेसिडेंट पार्लियामेंट में अप्रूवल की जरूरत पड़ेगी. आफ्टर दैट the bill has to be given assent by the president, then only it can become an act, right? So the amend the constitutional caste order 1950 and the constitutional type 1950 is an appropriation after which it passed by the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So this is how a law is being made. एक due process of law है जो follow करनी होती है before any basically law become an act, and their implementation is taken care by the state governments. Now, role of the state government की अगर बात करें, they also play a very significant role. A state may choose to recommend certain communities for the addition and subtraction for any list into the SC and ST based on the discretion. तो ये state के पास discretions होती है कि वो basically उनके inclusions के लिए recommendations आगे forward करें. Now, these recommendations may be from the studies that the commission has taken from the caste or classifying that Hatti community which is there in the Himachal Pradesh. Now, following this, the proposal to include or removal of the community from the scheduled list is sent to the union government. So, union government, जो tribal affair ministry, उनके पास फिर ये report जाती है to from the concerned state government, and after which a law is being made, passed in the parliament, and finally an approval of president and assent of president is mandatory to make it a law. Now, after this, the Ministry of Tribal Affairs, through its own deliberations, examine the proposal and send it to the Registrar General of India, ताकि सेंसस में इनकी डिटेल्स मेंटेन हो जाए और इसको वापस इनको लिस्ट किया जाए. Now, once by the approval of RGI, that is the Registrar General of India, the proposal is sent to the National Commission for the Scheduled Tribe or the National Commission for Scheduled Tribe or the Scheduled Commission. तो NSCM और NSST ये दोनों एक important body है जो आपके prelims point of view से भी काफी important, right? So following which the proposal is sent back to the union government after an interministerial deliberations or cabinet approval के बाद this come into action, and post the assent of the president it become a law. Now, criteria to begin with the process. See, I'm just making you understand with each and every minute details. अगर कोई भी क्वेश्चन आए तो उसको आराम से हैंडल कर पाए. So what is the criteria to begin with the process? To establish whether a community is a scheduled tribe, the government look at several criteria. कुछ important criteria है जो उनको देखनी होती है. अगर ये criteria fulfill होती है, then only they are included into the list. The first criteria is the ethnological trait. उसके बाद उनकी traditional characters देखी जाती हैं, examine की जाती है. क्या distinctive cultures हैं that is also taken into consideration. Geographical isolations and backwardness. So you can say these are the 5 important basically consideration that is taken care by the government before their inclusion into the list. However, in March this year, the Supreme Court said that it wanted to fix a full proof parameters to determine if a person belonging to the scheduled tribe is entitled to take the benefit of this community or not. So Supreme Court has also made an intervention asking that there should be a fixed full proof if any inclusion is done in the ST or SC list. So it is the judiciary was no longer sure about the affinity test and used to sift the distinct trait linked to a person or tribe. तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने एक फुल प्रूफ बात की है ताकि किसी भी इंक्लूजन की वैलिड रीजंस दी जाए, उनके बैकिंग हो ताकि गवर्नमेंट उस चीज को बैक कर पाए व्हाई दे आर गिविंग अ प्रॉपर रिप्रेजेंटेशंस. Now moving to the other news, USTR meeting to discuss WTO dispute settlement reform. Something important for general studies paper 2, that is the important international institution agencies and their mandate. It is important under the same topic, that is the government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues rising from its design and implementations. Now the US trade representative is convened a meeting on the trade ministerial G20 meeting which is scheduled to be held in Bali, सितंबर 21 को ये मीटिंग होनी है जहाँ पे इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट पे डिस्कशन होगी और सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है दैट इज अ डिस्प्यूट सेटलमेंट रिफॉर्म। तो ये काफ़ी लॉन्ग पेंडिंग डिस्प्यूट है जिसके अभी तक सॉल्यूशंस नहीं हुए। Now the meeting will be attended by India's Commerce Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, who will be in Bali for G20 Trade Investment Industries meeting scheduled for September 21st, 2022. Now the Geneva-based 161 member, that is G20, basically अगर बात करें multilateral, no, basically I'm talking about the other part of the WTO. WTO की बात करें 164 member है यहाँ पे. This is precisely about the WTO. So WTO, which is a 164 member multilateral body, reveals that the global exporter-import related norms. So they will look into the aspect where the adjudication process need to be spurred and it should give a resolutions to each and every member countries. Now beside this, the adjudication trade between the member countries were long pending. Now ways for settlement, अगर बात करें settlement की, किस तरह के settlement process है जो WTO follow करती है, there are two main ways to settle any problem in the WTO if a complaint is arising. First, the country find a mutual agreement solutions, particularly during the phase of a bilateral consultation. This is the one methodology. The other important methodology, or you can say the ways, is through the adjudication, which include the ruling by a panel. If they are not satisfied, they can challenge the ruling in an appellate body. तो सारी बात यहाँ पे appellate body को लेकर के की गई है. Appellate body की जो concern है WTO में, this is long pending since 2017 because the vacancy, there are vacant, there are many posts that is vacant in the WTO appellate body. तो we'll discuss that in the later part of the video. मैं आपको बताऊंगा कि क्या consequences हो सकते हैं जो appellate body में vacancies हैं. अब बात करें अगर appellate body status की, so appellate body is an apex institutions to adjudicate any matter that is coming to WTO. अगर WTO की बात करें उसमें एक बहुत ही अहम एस्पेक्ट है appellate body की. For WTO it's the most powerful body, right? So World Trade Organization dispute settlement mechanism is going through a crisis and the body is struggling to appoint the new members, right? और ये जो body है ये understaffed है and still do not hear the appeal with regards to the trade. Now, according to some of the international experts, उनका मानना है कि US जो है, they wanted to weaken the two-tier system of dispute resolution system, and they do not want to intend to restore the appellate body. So this is the hidden interest of United States that the expert has raised that you had never wanted that these bodies should again come into power and they should take the reformist action. Now, developed countries, on the other hand, talking about the developing countries, they are of the strong view that the two-tier system for the fundamental of the smooth functioning of the dispute settlement mechanism should come into action and their revival is necessary. So a question can be asked in main examination that what should be your stand talking about the appellate body, whether revival should be a makeover, it should be a game changer, or it should be like scrapped away. आपके opinion based सवाल भी इस पे पूछे जा सकते हैं. Now about the G20 member countries, G20 is an intergovernmental forum that has a major developed and developing economies. Collectively, G20 account for 85% of the global GDP, 75% of international trade, and 2/3 of the world population. So these are some of the basic facts that you must know. And India is currently the part of G20 ट्राइकोया. अगर बात करें इसकी तो तीन चीज़ों की इंडिया करंट, प्रीवियस एंड इनकमिंग G20 प्रेसिडेंटशिप को कंप्राइज करती है. दिस कंप्राइज ऑल्सो इंडोनेशिया, इटली एंड इंडिया. So these are some of the important facts that might be relevant for many other competitive examination also. Online dispute resolution is an example of social engineering. This is what Nandal Nikalani has to say. And this is important for General Studies paper 2. That is the important aspect of governance, transparency, accountability, and e-governance. So addressing the graduation student at the 30th annual convocation ceremony at the National Law School of Indian University, properly known as NSLUI, IU, इसमें co-founder जो है Infosys के, उन्होंने कुछ important बातें कही हैं. It said that more than 16 million of the dispute resolutions have been on board in the online dispute resolution system in the country of 2 years after Niti Aayog initiative to advance the ODR, that is the online dispute resolutions. So इस basically ODR की तारीफ की गई है and it has definitely given to a larger extent कि जहाँ पे जो डिस्प्यूट है उसके सॉल्यूशंस ऑनलाइन भी मुहैया करे जाए. Now in 2022, basically in 2020, the Niti Aayog has started this with association with the Agami and Omidar Network India, which has brought together the key stakeholders in the virtual meeting and advancing the online dispute redressal in India. Right? जिस तरह से educating authorities होती हैं court में when it's come to dispute settlement. Now this is an online initiative of online dispute resolution through which a resolution has been given, and very important for the general studies paper 3 paper, specifically in the mains examination. Now, the chairman and the founder of the Infosys has also said that it is important to note that social engineering has better informal system where many legal issues can be resolved in a country. And he added that more than 100 companies and 40 government departments are now using the online dispute resolution system. He also cited that the recent incident where non-profit organization called Ajivika Bureau Employment has ODI to resolve 3,000 wage dispute during the pandemic, and it has definitely impacted the migrant laborer and their contractors. Now it is necessary to reinvent the structure, the system, and not just inside the government, but also to look for the civil society revamp where these people are actually being benefited. Now, Mr. Nikani has also highlighted that there is a need for lack for effective system, and structure affects the poor and marginalized who need to widen the opportunity gap. तो अगर इस तरह के solutions को और revamp किया जाए, इसके दायरे को और अगर बढ़ाया जाए, तो बहुत सारे ऐसे marginalized लोग हैं जिनको इसके benefits मिल सकती है, although this can be a game changer in the longer run. Now about ODI, online dispute resolutions की अगर बात करें, simple term, it is used, it's the use of technology to resolve the dispute outside the public court of India. जो Indian judiciary system है, उनके बाहर ये काम करती है, parallel काम करती है. You can use the word parallel, right? It is working parallelly. And the resolution of the dispute, particularly the small and medium cases, use digital technology and alternative dispute resolutions for the kind of negotiation, mediation and arbitration. जिस तरह से इंडिया में arbitration काम करती है for the company's dispute, this will be working on all three parameters, which include negotiation, mediations and arbitrations. Now, time for increased actions against the COVID-19, something relevant for general studies paper 2, that is issues related to development and management of health. So the World Health Organization Director General has urged the nation to keep up their efforts against the disease that has killed none less than 6 million people. तो जो WHO के DG हैं उन्होंने रिक्वेस्ट की सारे कंट्री से कि they need to be caution because this has become an infection which is becoming seasonal, and during basically festive season this tend to repeat and the infection level can on a higher side. So in light of the World Health Organization Director General की जो remarks दी हैं उन पे basically confirm करते हुए जो WHO की chief scientist है Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, she is from India. So she said that they have clarified that the many point that WHO DG has made in his speech underline that not letting up efforts just yet. We need to still be cautious, and those people who have not been vaccinated with vaccine 3 need to take their precautionary dose, because most of us has taken only first and second dose. So this is a time that we should also be taking third dose, right? Because in India, we'll be witnessing with a lot of festive season in coming months that is due. So इस तरह के seasons में basically, you know, and even for the change in the season, we'll be painting to the winter. So that is again a time where infection level on the higher side. So that is why it is being advised that we need to, you know, basically hold our belt and need to be caution on the side that infection can be there. It cannot be that harmful, but again, the infection might infect a lot number of people. Now, WHO chief scientist has noted that the government must increase efforts now so we can reach out to the end. And definitely for like COVID-19 is not going to be over very soon. It will take none less than 5 to 10 years down the line. Even the susceptibility and the infection of that particular virus is going to decrease, right? So intensity of virus के decrease होगी, but for the mankind, like for a longer run, this viral will live with a humankind. तो इसकी जो impact है उसे कम करने की जरूरत है. That is the reason the vaccine is being given to each and every individual. Now, current situation की अगर बात करें, according to WHO, there is a high transmission in all part of the world, and currently, regardless of any season, this infection has been witnessed. Now, she said that we are not approaching to a situation where COVID-19 is becoming a seasonal virus. So this is more or a kind of a seasonal virus that can even be on a higher side during the change of the season. The WHO chief scientist drew the attention that the sixth policy brief that was made earlier by the WHO in its release has said that we need to strengthen our COVID-19 working mechanism and we need to strengthen on overall procedures to combat this disease. Now, the policy believe an urgent call for the government to take hard look into their policies and strengthen them for the COVID-19 and future pathogens and the potential basically pandemic that India or any other part of the world can witness, right? So we need to be caution on that part as well. India is already witnessing some of the viral disease like monkeypox and other diseases were reported, right? तो खास करके इस तरह के जब वायरस एक्सपेंशंस हो रहे हैं, we need to take our cautions. WHO की क्या recommendations है? The WHO has recommended ending the COVID-19 emergency virus by including the vaccination at the higher risk group. ऐसे लोग जिनको कोमॉर्बिड्स के कैटेगरीज में आते हैं और जो एज्ड पीपल हैं उनको और थर्ड वैक्सीनेशन लगवाए जाए. मेंटेनिंग द स्ट्रॉन्ग सर्वेलेंस सिस्टम फॉर आवर हेल्थ केयर सिस्टम. Testing and sequencing is another important aspect. Ensuring early clinical care, right? And the targeted use of public health and social measures, including the isolation of the cases. So these are the things that has been recommended by WHO to ensure that the infection level is not rising to further high. That also provide for the guidance on the use of the mask, distancing, ventilations, cleaning hands, enabling communities with a clean and open communications, tackling the infodemic, right? So this is how the chief scientist of WHO has given us a caution that we need to take and we need to ensure all best practices that is there for the entire country. Now another critical role is that the nation has to play in the area of vaccination. Definitely, as I've told you, vaccinations जो हैं third dose तक हमें लेने की ज़रूरत है. For all of us, those of you who have not taken, do take it and ask your near and dear one to take it. The third dose is needed for this group for the maximum protections. And additionally, there's a recognition that need to strengthen the acute and long-term responses in relations to the pressing of the public health issues. Further, there's a need to promote the coordination of interdisciplinary research like zoonotic diseases की अगर बात करें जो कि COVID-19 एक classical example है जिसकी that give rise to the next pandemic and even develop the countermeasure that can quickly have a reciprocability. So ऐसे zoonotic disease जो एनिमल से बेसिकली एनिमल टू ह्यूमन बीइंग में आती है उन डिजीज को हमें मॉनिटर करने की जरूरत है, कंट्रोल करने की जरूरत है. Now moving to the other news, this is the editorial of the day, that is the gender pay gap, hard truth and the action needed, something relevant for general studies paper 2, that is the government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from a design and implementations. So what I'm going to discuss under this editorial, the theme of this editorial is gender pay gap, and I'll be simplifying this editorial into 5 important subheads. The first include the impact of the pandemic, wider pay gap, discrimination as a factor, step taken by the government of India, and the way forward. We'll see how this the important aspect in terms of overcoming all the problems with regards to the gender pay gap, right? So India is among the most important country when it's come to the global economic growth and structural transformation. This is what has been evident in this editorial. And a commensurate improvement in the labor market is an outcome for fair distribution of all the outcomes of the economic progress that spur for the economic growth. So this editorial precisely wanted to convey a message that for economic progress and to spur the economic growth, the disparity which is arising in the labor market need to be fill up with the gap where we have a parity in terms of gender, giving the wage equality for both the gender. There should be a gender neutral wage payments. But unsurprisingly, the country in the size and the diversity of India, the asymmetry is still arising in the country's labor market. We'll elaborate on that part, that how the country's labor market has the challenges that is being faced in terms of wage and other important aspects. So first and foremost, what is the impact of the pandemic? Like September 18 marked the third International Equal Pay Day 2022. This was a day that was marked. And it is a time to pause and reflect the extent of progress that was made during the closing and the gender pay gap that has accelerated the realization of principle of equal pay for equal work for equal value, right? So this is what has been enshrined in the International Equal Pay Day. While the full impact of the pandemic is yet not known, but it is clear that the impact is uneven, and especially the women being among the worst affected in terms of their income security. Even talking about the disparity in the income for be it any sector, especially I'm talking about the private sectors, there's a disparity that is still there, right? So many women revert the full case of care of children, basically their children, and early during the pandemic has foregoing their livelihood to do so. So this was witnessed by most of the women that they have reported that the cases of livelihood options and the impact of COVID-19 has severely impacted their overall income parity and overall basically livelihood options में जो livelihood है उसको भी. Now, a wider gap की अगर बात करें, according to the International Labour Organization Global Wage Report 2021, it suggests that the crisis has inflicted the massive downward pressures, basically in terms of the wage disproportionately affected the women total wage compared to men. So if you compare globally and even for at India level, ILO has categorically stated that the wage parity as per the men and women is still huge. And despite the notable progress in the closing of the gender pay gap over the time, India remains at the high in terms of international standard. So as per the ILO details, India is vulnerable in terms of the parity which should be there in income between the men and women. So India women earned on average of 48% less compared to male counterpart in 1993 to 1994. This is a fact that even you can use in the mains examination. Kindly take a note of this. And since the gap has declined to 28% in 2018-19, the Labor Force Data Survey by the National Sample Survey Office has categorically noted this point. So earlier from 48, it has been reduced to 28. This is for the current data. And the pandemic has reversed the decay. The progress that was made has been reversed because the periodic labor force survey has categorically noted that it has seen the gap of 7% between 2018 to 2021. So this was again, the toll was taken. You can add 28 plus 7. This is the number. Now, discrimination as a factor. So individual characterized such as education, skill, experience explain the part of gender pay gap. And as a part of gender pay gap can still attribute purely to the discrimination based on one gender. तो जेंडर बेस्ड डिस्क्रिमिनेशंस की अगर बात करें, कुछ इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट्स है जो इसे इंक्लूड करते हैं. द फर्स्ट इज द लोअर पेड टू वुमेन फॉर वर्क फॉर इक्वल वैल्यू, undervaluations of women work in highly feminized occupations and enterprises, and motherhood gap, which means that lower wages for mothers compared to the non-mothers. So this is what we call it with a term called as motherhood gap, motherhood pay. Right? The several steps taken by the government of India to ensure that is a level playing field for both men and women. So India has taken several steps in the legislation where the spirit to close a gender parity gap in terms of income should be there and to end the wage distribution among the men and women. In this regard, government has come up with the Minimum Wage Act of 1948 and there's adaptations of Equal Remuneration Act 1976. Although the government has come up with the new labor code where all this basically bills and act is going to compile in a single four code. In 2019, the government come up with a comprehensive reform in both legislation and enacted a code on wage. So this is what I was talking about. You can even read the details, but the implementation part still due with many states because of the rejection that the state has shown. They have reluctancy regarding the implementation of all this bill. Now talking about the important basically act, that is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, better known as MNREGA, has benefited rural women and helped to reduce the gender pay gap both directly and indirectly. So if you're giving an example, ensure that you're making an example of MNREGA, and this can be again a classical example which has called for the parity between the genders. Now in 2017, the government has amended the Maternity Benefit Act 1961 और इस अमेंडमेंट के बाद काफ़ी ज़्यादा चेंजेस देखी गई जहाँ पे एक वुमेन को मैटरनिटी बेनिफिट 12 वीक से बढ़ाकर 26 वीक कर दिए गए हैं, राइट. एंड दिस हैज़ डायरेक्टली इम्पैक्टेड ऑलमोस्ट 10 crore of women working for the sector. Apart from enabling legislation, efforts are also made through the Skill India Mission to equip women with the market relevant skill. ऐसी स्किल दी जाए ताकि वो जो मार्केट ओरिएंटेड जॉब्स हैं उनको पूरा कर पाए with their all skills. and learning to livelihood gap with the gender gap pay can also be feasible, right? Now, if you're concluding this editorial and if you want to write a way forward, you can note that on these target of the UN Sustainable Development Goal 8, which call for achieving full and productive employment and decent work for all women and men, that include young people, person with disable, and equal pay for equal work by 2030, right? So this is what the vision is. अब SDG के goals के बारे में जो SDG के goal 8 हैं वो पूरे mention करें. Equal pay for equal work value is necessary to close the gender pay gap across the world. Specifically अगर इंडिया की बात करें, इंडिया में ये disparity काफ़ी ज़्यादा है compared to many other countries. Now there's an accelerated and bold action that is needed from the government of India to ensure the widening of the gender pay gap and closing the existing gap. So this is how that things will work in the right direction, and we can ensure that definitely if this policy is taken into consideration, if the government is seriously looking into this, this gap can further reduce by 2030 and we can have an equal pay for equal work for both genders across male and female. So this is how you can conclude your answer. Now moving ahead with the MCQ questions of the day, before I proceed, just to tell you the answers of yesterday questions. For first question, the correct option is C. For second question, the correct option is B. This is for the Saturday question that was there. Now today's MCQ questions, आपको बताना है टेक्नोलॉजी एंड इनोवेशन रिपोर्ट 2021 कौन सी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन रिलीज करती है, वेदर इज यूनाइटेड नेशन कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑन ट्रेड एंड डेवलपमेंट, इकोनॉमिस्ट इंटेलिजेंस यूनिट, World Economic Forum, Global Entrepreneurial and Development Institute. This is the first question. You have to check for the correct options. Second question of the day, that is the Food Waste Index 21 is a report by UNDP, International Food Policy and Research Institute, Walk Free Foundations, and New Economics Foundation. So do check it out for the correct option. These type of reports and indexes are pretty much relevant for the UPSC prelims examination. This was all about for the daily news and editorial analysis followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern, you can let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.